he likes.
I would like kind of move it over to my next question from my side. The key players, right? That's what we kind of talk about. That's what we mean by the parties, the stakeholders. And I found a very interesting acronym I didn't know earlier, which is like EMSPs, the Electric Mobility Service Providers. And that would include many major players. I brought.
So they have a new cluster name called
I think that's how you would.
EMSP.
Marilla, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's that's correct. That's kind of the cluster, the EMSPs, the electric.
Identify them as the EMSP player.
Yeah, and just to come up with some more acronyms, and I think one of them you mentioned, I want to list some of those. So OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, we know those, the automotive manufacturers, Mercedes, Volkswagen, General Motors, Ford. Not to be confused with the, pure EV manufacturers. That's not OEM. So Tesla is not an OEM in that sense. Obviously, sometimes we're mixing that up because when we're talking about cars, we want to put that in the same category. The next one would be CNO or CPO, so the charging network or charging point operators. I think, Marilla, you prefer the CPO, the charging point operator. Technically, we're talking about the charging columns where you want to drive your car at charge. Governments and regulators, we also tapped into that for a second. Cities and governments, they have to make policies, regulations to push stuff or to stuff certain things, I guess. Standards, like to have certain, make standards, actually, you need these, regulators to introduce them. One thing I haven't thought about is the next one would be charging equipment manufacturers. So someone who's making new developments in the charging cables, in the columns. Players could be ABB, Siemens, Schneider Electric, and I guess there's many, many more examples in all these different countries. Then the power companies, the energy, the utility companies, big player, I think. I will come to that in a later point, but you were mentioning Deutsche Bank, and you mentioned Stripe in the same. That's PSP, the payment service providers. I guess there's more acronyms, but it's one of them. Other examples, I know PayPal could be one of those. Stripe, we said. SumUp, that's what we actually used early when we paid at the restaurant we had our lunch at. So I think, yeah,